Hollow Knight is filled with various bugs and beasts with great power and will, and some of the weaker bosses become even more powerful in the dream world, like this guy. But considering how tight Team Cherry seems to make all their lore, I don't believe that they solely added in Zote the Mighty for comedic effect. In fact, I believe that Zote the Mighty gives us a bit of insight into the lands beyond Hallownest. Let's start by examining all of Zote's entries in the Hunter's Journal. First of all, I want to distinguish something in the Hunter's Journal. This top part is always fact. It was put in there for steady foundations on the lore that won't change. This bottom part is the Hunter's personal thoughts. This is not reliable, though it should be taken into consideration. In this first one, even though the bottom part doesn't tell us anything useful because we already know Zote is a weak bitch. However, the top part, which reads, "A self-proclaimed knight of no renown, wields a nail he carved from shellwood named the Life Ender," is useful. This doesn't just tell us that Zote is someone who just started calling themselves Zote the Mighty, but most likely is not of any form of high blood, as the boss named Great Prince Zote suggests. Moving on to the winged Zoteling entry, we gain a little more information on Zote. She asked whether he had bought the charm for her as he promised he would, but then he explained the charm was actually of low quality and not worth the price asked. From this, since we know Zote is a liar, we know that Zote didn't come from any wealth. Combining this with Zote's journal entry, we can definitely say that Zote came from a family of common bugs. We don't actually learn anything from the Great Prince Zote entry and Halfling Zote entry, except for that Zote is kind to those who admire him. The volatile Zoteling entry, however, does give us absolutely nothing, although you might expect it to. Next up, we are going to talk about Zote's dialogue. When you first free Zote, he is clearly irritated by you, claiming that you got in the way of him and his prey, and introducing himself. Soon after, when you meet him back at Dirtmouth, he forgets he met you and reintroduces himself. This could suggest that Zote's memory has been affected by something, making every piece of dialogue and Dreamnail dialogue pretty much useless. If we give into the theory that Zote's memory was actually a prince of a kingdom before his jealous brother teamed up with his mob to strip him of his memory and send him off into the world believing his weapon Life Ender is dangerous and that he is a knight. But there's a bunch of other reasons that are more likely. Zote just got brain damage from nearly being killed by the Vengefly King. Zote's memory was affected by entering Hallownest and gaining higher thought, or he was just born special. Then also looking at Zote's dialogue, you'll notice that most of it is just him believing he is strong and mocking others, making most of it useless. In fact, all of his basic dialogue is useless except for his 57 Precepts of Zote. The first Dreamnail dialogue you can get from Zote is after freeing him from the Vengefly King, and it states, "Foolish beast, you dulled your mandibles by gnawing on my indestructible body. No wonder you were defeated by this weakling." Now there's no way that could be true considering that we can kill Radiance, a fucking god, and then the Vengefly thing could kill Zote because he's indestructible. But I think it's true. And I know it sounds stupid, but hear me out. First of all, I don't see how the Vengefly thing could kill him if it was false. Then there's the fact that he goes through the City of Tears, in and out of Deepnest, and then gets beat up by us in the Colossum Falls, and then comes back to Dirtmouth alive. Then finally, looking at the prequel comic again, Quill says that the journey of Hallownest is one that few would pass, which normal Zote probably wouldn't be able to pass, especially with Hornet guarding the entrance, unless Zote was indestructible. So how is Zote being indestructible affect non-Zote lore, you may ask? I have no fucking idea, but I'm pretty sure this boy is indestructible. But then every theory I've said so far could be false. When dreamnailing Zote the first time he comes up to Dirtmouth, he thinks, "This dreary place, it reminds me of home, how ghastly," which could mean that Zote was actually born in Hallownest. Because there is no actual concrete evidence that leaving Halnest affects your memory, as Quill's memory could have been altered by Monomon, considering he comes back to Halnest at the same time as the knight. It is possible that Monomon somehow foresaw this feature, and the only way for the knight to succeed on their journey was to have Quill leave Halnest with no memory and to draw him back at the time of the knight's arrival. This means that people in Halnest have the power to alter memory, which means that Zote's memory could have been altered for some form of higher purpose as well, but I have no idea what that could be. However, another line of Dreamnail dialogue from Zote contradicts this. How miserable to be stuck here instead of continuing my quest. I came to this kingdom to fulfill a promise, and that is what I will do. Since it is mentioned more times that Zote is a traveler, I found it likely that this is false, but it doesn't mean it isn't possible. But if Zote really was born in Halnest, there is no knowing when he was born. In the Soulmaster's Hunter's journal entry, the hunter remarks that bugs of Halnest tried all kinds of tricks and rituals and prayers to rid themselves of the infection, but to no avail. This most likely means that the plague that came across Halnest and led to its ruin was spread through dreams. And Zote's 56th precept is do not dream. This means that Zote could have survived the infection, and that his memory loss is related to him somehow not dreaming about Shrek. Moving on to the 57 precepts of Zote. Precept 4 is forget your past. Zote says that the past is painful, meaning that he remembers his time outside of Halnest, unlike Quill, who's forgotten everything. Well, then why does Quill not remember, yet Zote does? I think the answer to this is that Zote was born outside of Halnest, meanwhile Quill was born in Halnest. As we see in the prequel comic, there is another bug named Boone, who is only capable of basic speech and is driven mostly by instinct. However, without higher thought, Boone is still capable of remembering things like how to cook and his name. I know these are really basic things, but the idea here is that Zote would be able to remember things even when outside of Halnest. I think this theory somewhat stands, as when listening to the other precepts of Zote, some of them are completely obvious, though it seems as if Zote just learned these things, like Precept 27, 34, 36, and so on. So while Zote remembers some things, he forgets other things. Of course, these things Zote could have learned when he was like 3 and just has them as precepts because he thinks nobody else has learned them yet. Moving on to Precept 6, our elders teach that our fate is chosen for us before we are even born. I disagree. This tells us that Zote was likely forced into a role. Considering he was but a common bug, it was probably some sort of labor. Zote clearly didn't want to be whatever he was forced to be, and left his homeland seeking a kingdom where he could become a knight of great renown. Zote's 11th and 52nd precept tell us that Zote didn't trust his mother or father. It could have something to do with Precept 30, which states never to accept a promise as they are always broken. It could also be because they forced him into a role, or because of some other reason. We really don't get any information on why he doesn't trust them, but it was clearly something big, as Precept 8 states that Zote can only trust himself. Then there's Precept 40, which states that laws are created by others to inconvenience you. This means that it's possible that Zote started a massive drug chain and was then exiled from his home city, and that is the reason why he came to Halnest. Yeah, but that's really it. Nothing else surrounding Zote seems notable. Oh wait, fuck, I nearly forgot. This line right here means that Zote actually could have killed a bunch of people, which brings to mind a new theory. Zote comes from a land where he is a giant compared to all the other bugs. In his city, his father forced him to take a town so that he could become a king of lands. Then seeking more land, his father sent Zote searching for more lands to conquer. Due to his immeasurable strength he had in his homeland, this could have made Zote too proud to realize his strength was nothing compared to that of creatures of Halnest. But yeah, now that's it. Wait, fuck. I forgot about the Eternal Ordeal. So in Godhelm, which I'm going to explain poorly, is basically an arena of all the gods that some guy is using to try to find the most powerful god. And you can find a hidden statue with Zote on it, and when you challenge it, you fight an eternal wave of Zotes. This was most likely just added for comedic effect, but if I were to explain it, I would say that the gods recognized that Zote was indestructible, in other words eternal, and could never be defeated. However, Zote could never defeat another god, and therefore his statue was hidden, as he had no chance of defeating any other gods. But now that's it. I can't think of any other Zote lore. Seriously, cue the outro.
Not going away, tired of space.